Guys, welcome to this extra video which I thought I'd put together, which was going through my predictions for the League Two um, table for, I can now say, this past main season. And I've got what I predicted and actually where the teams actually finished. How well did I do? There's some big apologies I have to make in this video, throughout the video. So with it being that long, I shall get on with it. I will let you know where I said they would finish and actually where the clubs actually did finish. Shall we start with the first one? We'll go from bottom to top. I predicted in 24th place. I predicted Salmon Weaver and Harrogate Town. I got this one wrong. Unfortunately, I got this one not very wrong, but I got it wrong bad enough. Harrogate, you think that because of the budget that Harrogate have got. You know, I think they're always going to probably be the bottom end of League Two. But one thing they definitely did have throughout the season was a strong home form, especially at the back end. And that really did help Harrogate to stay up. So credit to Harrogate for that. They actually finished 18th. They actually finished with a record of 14 wins, 11 draws and 21 defeats. A minus 18 goal difference for Harrogate. But they proved me wrong, and they were struggling for a little while, but then they went on an 8-game at home unbeaten run, and that pretty much saw them over the line. They finished with 53 points, so well done to Harrogate Town. My second bottom place team, shall I say, was Bromley. And this is my first big apology that I have to say, because I said they would finish second bottom, and oh boy was I wrong. And I remember a fan coming on my prediction video really saying, pretty much, how dare you put us there and we're not going to finish there. It was my opinion, but I'll tell you something. Michael Cheek has been a revelation at League Two level. They haven't got any big, well-known League Two players. Michael Cheek, I believe, ended up as the league top scorer. Yes, he did. He ended up with 25 goals in the end. And what I would say about Andy Woodman, I just want to say this quickly about Bromley. Andy Woodman, whether you like him or you don't like him, I know fans of my club, Grimsby, aren't the biggest fans of Andy Woodman, but you can't take away with what he's been able to achieve. So I'm going to send my apologies to Bromley supporters. You guys proved me wrong. And you actually finished in the top half of League Two in your first season in the EFL. 11th, 66 points. Bromley's record was 17 wins, 15 draws, and 14 defeats. And right up until the last 2 or 3 games of the season, they were in the playoff push for a long while. So credit to Bromley. I got that one very, very badly wrong, and I have no problem admitting when I got something so wrong. Well done to Bromley. Great first season in the EFL for them. I then went for Newport County to finish 22nd, and it's the first one I've got right. Hooray! Their season, especially the second half of it, was a disaster. An absolute sheer disaster. they just could not get anything going. Obviously, Hugh Jenkins owns Newport, who used to be the Swansea owner. But when they did, when Jardim came in as was head coach, but I think he'd always been like a first coach or second coach in other jobs that he'd done. Obviously worked in Spain a lot with a couple of B teams. You know, they tried to be a possession-based team. It didn't quite come off for Newport at all, and he left right, you know, with a couple of games to go. They got a draw against Walsall, and then I think it was Walsall, and then they just they said, yeah, it was the 0-0 draw against Walsall, and then they let him go. It unfortunately, because Newport are a good little club, and but hopefully this gives them a chance to sort of rebound and whatever else. But one right for me, 22nd. But I'm sure Newport they'll have to come back stronger, but I'm sure they will. But finally got one right. This is another one. The 21st place team that I said would be. My God, I got this wrong. It's another one that I got terribly wrong. I said Colchester United. Now, you know, there was... sorry. I'll just go back to Newport. Their record was 13 wins, 10 draws and 23 defeats. 49 points Newport finished on. That's 7 points clear of the drop. Back to Colchester United. I said, boy, I got this wrong. But should I really have been surprised? When I made the prediction, you know, Colchester for the last several years have been struggling towards the end of the season. So there was, you know, there was stats and everything leading to the fact that Colchester could struggle again. And although I should have known, because the Cowleys get something out of a team, and they do, you know, and they really do. I think, obviously, we went to Colchester after the new year, and we got a win over at Colchester in what felt like it was more of a sandpit. But Colchester, especially with the Cowleys, they're a difficult little team, and to be fair, you know, what they were able to achieve, they obviously had Aurora Edwards, who myself am aware of, as are many other Grimsby fans. He was a standout player for Colchester, and actually on that night against Grimsby, he was a standout player. They also got Lyle Taylor. I think the loss of Lyle Taylor in the running probably is what probably cost Colchester a playoff place. Because this is why I say I got it so wrong. I said they'd finish 21st. They actually finished 10th. 16 wins from 46 games. Drawing 19 and losing 11. So it was probably more the draws that actually kept them 67 points. But they had a chance going into the last couple of games of making that. So it's kind of like another apology to Colchester fans that you guys definitely did the job, but I shouldn't have been surprised having the Cowleys. They are such... Whether you like the tactics sometimes, they get results, and that basically is what it's about. As a football fan, you want results. It's not about how you play. You'd like to play the fancy football, but they play very direct. They like to use some of the dark arts, but you know, 10th place finish, something to really build off for them, you know, and it's just showing you how bad so far my predictions have been. Next is Morecambe. I said they'd finish 20th. I think that was being a bit hopeful. Unfortunately, Morecambe actually did finish bottom, relegated on 36 points. It was just a mess this year at Morecambe. I mean, Derek Adams has been there 3 times. Obviously, he finished the season. He did give them a little bit of a kick around about January, February time. But, when you're signing 12 players literally on the same day, when you had an embargo, a transfer embargo lifted, you then sign 12 players on the same day, and you lose a player like Cole Stockton. It just sort of shows you that you hadn't got the right mix, you hadn't got the right quality. Unfortunately for Morecambe, I've been to Morecambe a couple of times, and it's a lovely little ground. It's a lovely little ground, and I'm so sorry about what seems to be going on behind the scenes of Morecambe. And hopefully they can get that sorted out going into the National League last season. I said 20th. They finished bottom. Feel so sorry for Morecambe, but I'm sure if they can get the off-field issues sorted, they're a good little club. So good luck to them going forward. Next, in 19th place, I said Cheltenham. Now, this one, obviously, I got wrong because they actually finished on 15th, 16 wins from 46 games, 12 draws and 18 defeats, 60 goals scored, 70 conceded though. I think we know where Cheltenham's problem was, and that they struggled at the start of the season, but they were playing some good stuff. Grimsby played them early in the season. My team did, when we came away with a 3-2 win, thanks to a Jordan Davis free kick, and it was sort of like you could see they played some good stuff, and it was just consistency, and I think Michael Flynn knows a player and he knows how to manage at this level. There's no getting away from that. I think they've got a good base. It was just kind of like relegation hangover, I think, for Cheltenham. But in the end, they've ended comfortably mid-table, you would say. 60 points, you can't really grumble with that. I think good on them. I think one of their best performances was the 2-2 draw in the last 5 minutes after being 2-0 down against Walsall. What a battling point that was for them to get. But, they're a good footballing side, so hopefully they can sort of rebound this season, next season, sorry. And, obviously the retain lists are coming out. I think Cheltenham's have just come out as I record this, so they're going to be on a rebuild, but disappointing in one way. But like I said, they're able to get to 15th, build from there. Back to Morecambe just briefly. Their record was only 10 wins this season, 6 draws and 30 defeats. You can see why relegation doomed for them. We'll move on now to who I said would finish 18th, and that was Fleetwood Town, the Cod Army. A good little team. They're a team that, again, was going through the relegation hangover, although on the opening day, I have to admit they didn't, when they beat Grimsby 1-0. Because obviously that's when I mainly saw them, was when they played my side. But they always looked at a decent side. They end up, getting some good results at the start of the season up to about October. And then they got that massive win at Walsall, 6-2 out of absolutely nowhere. But then their manager left, and then Pete Wild came in, which was about February, and I thought, what a coup that is. I'd expect Fleetwood to come again next year, that's for absolute certain. Their record this season was 15 wins, 15 draws and 16 defeats. I bet they wish they'd just kept it 15, 15 and 15. But an even goal difference as well, 60 points for them as well. It's funny because I put Cheltenham and Fleetwood 19th and 18th. They actually finished 14th and 15th. So I got them close together, but just in the wrong place. But no, I think Fleetwood will come. Charlie Adam did okay there when he was there at the start of the season. But obviously they expected a bit more. But again, I just think it was a relegation hangover again for them. I think next year they could be a little bit of a danger side. But we'll see. At least they're in League Two, and in the end, comfortably bottom end mid-table. Well, top end mid-table. So can't really fault your first season back. Sometimes you need those kind of seasons though. Next is Fleetwood Town. No, it's not. It's who I said was 17th. And I said it would be Accrington Stanley. And I got this wrong as well. Accrington, again, I believe it was relegation for them as well. But I just felt I didn't fancy him pushing, but I also didn't think they'd be struggling as bad as they did. Obviously, John Coleman was let go during the season after so long being associated with Accrington, and they just couldn't get anything going. I mean, their overall record for the season is 12 wins, 14 draws and 20 defeats. A goal difference of -16. They only scored 53 goals this season. Again, I would say it was their home form that saved Accrington this season. They've got a couple of decent players in the team, and all teams do. You know, they don't have bad players a lot of the time. They just could not get anything going. And I think you expect Accrington to improve definitely next year. But no, I got it wrong by 5 places. And I have in 4 places, sorry. But you know, Accrington were flirting for a little while on relegation, that was for sure. But they've just been able to pull away. They got they're unbeaten in 4 before their last day when they won 2 and drew 2, and that near enough saved Aki from relegation. In 16th place, I went for Wimbledon. And again, I need to send an apology towards Wimbledon because I got that so badly wrong, I couldn't believe it. And I really couldn't, you know. I said 16th. They actually finished 5th. And obviously on the last day, finally getting their playoff confirmed. It was a playoff shootout with my side. Grimsby, they got a 1-0 win. Very, very good defence. Very good defence. Johnny Jackson has at Wimbledon. I know a fan on one of my Grimsby videos did say it'd probably be like a bit of a bore fest, and we'd probably beat them. But to be fair, they know how to hold on to leads, and I think that's going to be a challenge for any team that plays them in the playoffs. I'll talk about that just before the end of the video as well. But Wimbledon have definitely proven me wrong. There is no doubt about that. Like I said, I got that so wrong. So apologies to Wimbledon fans. You didn't finish 16th, you finished 5th. In a very good season, so much so their record was 20 wins in 46, draw 13, lost 13. But this is what helped them. They only scored 56 goals this term, but they've only conceded 35. And that just shows you how difficult They are. If Wimbledon score first, they're quite good. It's if they are trying to come from a deficit, that's where they seem to be struggling. But credit to Wimbledon, a 5th place finish, and playoffs coming for them at the weekend. Then we'll go on to 15th. I said Tranmere Rovers. Didn't they have a bit of a mess? They actually finished 20th. And, they started the season with Nigel Atkins. And, you're thinking, Nigel has some real good nous about the league, but just wasn't to be, was it? It was they just weren't scoring, and that was one of Tranmere's biggest problems. They just weren't scoring goals. And there's a couple of teams in that, we'll talk about that as well. They weren't losing by many goals a lot of the time. They just weren't scoring them and not really creating many chances either. And I just think it was right when they made the change. If they'd made the change, they would have finished higher. But at the end of the day, Tranmere made the change, and it worked. They were on a real bounce after Andy Crosby took over at Tranmere. They took a right bounce. Their record in the end was 12 wins, 15 draws and 19 defeats. Ended up with a minus 20 goal difference and with 51 points. I think they'd have been close to a top-half finish had Andy Crosby probably been put in charge earlier. But you can tell they've got something to build off at the end, something to really build up from. So we'll see what next year brings for Tranmere. My 14th place team was Salford City. Now, Salford, one of those teams, they're a tricky team because I think their ground helps them with that, with it being such a tight, condensed ground. The atmosphere is not great at Salford, and it really isn't. I've only been once, but it never comes across as an atmospheric stadium. You always seem to lead Salford sort of 2-1 in fans, but again they got Carl Robinson in the summer, and they started really well. Then they took a real nosedive, and then they came back again. And it was just sort of like, so close. And they were so close to a playoff place. They were going to it on the last day, but they needed results in the end to go their way. But they didn't get their result. Overall, they can be happy with the season overall. They've had, they got Cole Stockton, and who's always a dangerous striker at this level period anyway. And, they had some really good performances overall as a squad, but I think again it's all about a little bit of consistency. Their record in the end ended up being 18 wins, 15 draws and 13 defeats, ended with a plus 10 goal difference and ended out just 1 point outside the playoffs on 69 points. But in the end, a good season for Salford. They're going to want to push on next year, I am sure. I think there is talk of maybe some more investment or maybe a change of ownership at Salford. We'll see what goes on over the summer there. But a very good season overall for Salford. Disappointing not to make the playoffs, though, obviously, on the last day. If we go then to my 13th place team, which was my team, Grimsby Town. I put them in 13th, and I stuck by that because I honestly thought, after our season last season where we flirted with relegation for most of the season, at least from October onwards, we were flirting with relegation all the way through, and this is one that I was pleased that I got wrong. They actually finished. I said 13th. They actually finished 9th. And let me tell you, to take the playoff push right to the very last day, obviously gutting that we didn't make it, but I'll take you through the record in a minute as to why I feel we didn't make it. But I was sceptical about David Artell when we hired him back in the October of the season before. But one thing I have to say is to David Artell is he proved me wrong. He proved me wrong. Absolutely proved me wrong. That is, in the end, we have to look at it like this. It's our best finish since 2005 in the Football League. Never thought we'd be anywhere near the playoffs. And actually, if you look at our actual record in 46 games was 20 wins, 8 draws and 18 defeats. 61 goals scored, 67 conceded. Out of everybody inside the top 14, we were the worst goal difference. We had -6. I don't know how in the world we ended up being where we were, but credit to all the lads that gave us a season this season to be proud of. And again, disappointing after that final day defeat to Wimbledon, which was a playoff decider, really. But in the end, they would have got in there more than anything. But I think it's time for us fans of Grimsby just to decompress, and if we have a look at the season in general, our form in the last 6 weren't great, but very, very strong season for the Mariners, and I'm very pleased with the 9th place finish. We go to my 12th choice, and I'm going to say I'm sorry, but in the completely other direction. I actually put Carlisle to finish in the top half. That didn't happen. Unfortunately for Carlisle, they finished 23rd. Unfortunately, they didn't have a Jimmy Glass moment. Unfortunately, but it just seemed a mess at Carlisle. The amount of money they were throwing with signings and the type of signings they were getting, thinking we'll try and buy our way out of this. And I think our manager said, they were proof of, trying to buy your way out of issues that you're in, and there was no gelling. People were criticising with the Mike Williamson appointment. Yeah, I think I'd be more criticising with the fact they gave him the backing in January and then sacked him 2 or 3 days later after the window closed. It again similar to Morecambe, but in a completely different sense. Carlisle has just been ran like a mess, and it just shows you that you might have the money, but if you don't put it into the right places, it's not the amount of money that you spend, it's where you spend it. And Carlisle have just been a mess all year, and to be fair to Mark Hughes, he really did come in and give Carlisle a fighting chance, to be honest. He gave them a fighting chance. They took it to the last day or but they needed the results to go their way, but they didn't get the win they needed. But it wouldn't have mattered because Accrington and Tranmere got results that were going to send Carlisle down anyway. Unlucky for Carlisle because they are a great fan base. They are a great... they always travel well. It's always a pleasure to have them at Blundell Park as well. I think they will be back in the National League. Maybe not straight away, but I think they'll be back in a couple of years, I think, in because they are a good club. Unfortunate to see them relegated. Their record for the season, as you can tell, 10 wins, 12 draws and 24 defeats, going down with 42 points. But here's one of the problems. They conceded 71 goals this season. And you know, Newport were the worst defence. But 71 goals, you're not going to really do much there. And it just shows you that it's not about how much money you spend, it's where you spend the money. And Carlisle got found out and got punished. We move on from Carlisle. We go to who I said was going to finish 11th, which was Barrow. I got this one wrong, but I think the first half of the season wasn't what they expected. Obviously, they lost Pete Wild early in the season. As such, he left and then went went to Fleetwood in the end. Fleetwood later on, but Barrow kind of like a plateau season for them, because they had always sort of first couple of seasons flirted at the top end. I think this season they've kind of plateaued and they finished 16th. Obviously a lot lower than I thought. So again, I got it wrong. I haven't got a lot of these right, have I really? But I think Andy Wing came in. They got him from Solihull Moors. And to be fair, he gave them a lift. He gave them a bounce. He's made them more difficult to beat again. And they went unbeaten in their last 6 games. 2 wins and 4 draws. A lot of people can't argue with what they were given at the back end of the season. It's a shame about the middle part, really, for Barrow. Their record in the end was 15 wins, 14 draws, and 17 defeats. But it'll be interesting to see what Andy Wing does in the summer to try and bring Barrow on that bit more and maybe make them challenge towards the top half again. Not exactly the finish I'm sure Barrow would have wanted, but definitely didn't get where I put them. But I think they've got shoots of positivity to take for the upcoming season, I should say. We then go into my top 10 choices, and some of these weren't too bad. Some of these were god awful. We'll start with the 10th, which was Swindon Town. Now, it wasn't looking that way. Swindon did not start well at all. I know that there's been a bit of talk about the ownership of Swindon, and to be fair, the opening couple of months of the season, Swindon were dreadful. I mean, they were absolutely dreadful. And it was just, it just wasn't working. They ended up sacking their manager. Nothing was going right for them. And then they hired Ian Holloway. And you've got to say that Holloway got a tune out of them. He got a tune out of them. And they went on world class, not only world class as a winning spree, they went on a scoring spree where, to be fair, they were knocking goals in for fun. Overall, they've ended up with 71 goals this season. Where in the world did that come from? Because the first couple of months, they were nowhere. But he worked his magic, I guess. You have to give credit where credit's due. And to be fair, I wasn't too far off with this one. I put them in 10th. They finished 12th. And really, Holloway did do a cracking job. And for a long while, they were coming, but it just came. Their run came just a little bit too late. Their winning run came a little bit too late. Obviously, he's played us at Grimsby Town twice, beat us twice convincingly. The 4-0 win back in March, we were nowhere to be seen in that. Swindon were well and truly deserved winners on that day, and even down at Swindon. So, a good season once Ollie was able to get his teeth into it, and a very respectable top half finish. If Swindon or as I class it, with being 12th, as mid-table can get. In fact, that is the mid-table place. So, but not a bad season once Ollie got in there. So, 12th place finish for Swindon. I said 10th, not quite right, but there we go. Another one that I got terribly wrong was Gillingham. Now, Gillingham, they just can't score, could they? That's been Gillingham's problem the last couple of seasons. They just haven't scored enough. And it was the same again with them this season. They don't concede many goals at all, but they don't score many. And that is one of Gillingham's big problems. They were top of the table at the start of September. And then I have to admit that my side Grimsby knocked them off their perch with a 1-0 win. I think it was a Danny Rose goal that got that one. Sorry, Gillingham fans. But then it started to sort of show a decline in them. They did decline. They massively declined. I think they had Stephen Clements in. That didn't work. Didn't seem to work in the end. But Gillingham are a very good club. I was surprised. The reason why I put them up as high as I did is, the promise of what Gillingham can do. And I was so surprised how poor they ended up going between, since that loss to Grimsby and Gareth Ainsworth coming in, really. They were... I think John Coleman went there briefly. He was, and then they were able to get Gareth Ainsworth right near the end of the season from Shrewsbury. But I can't see them having another season like this, because if there's one thing that Gareth Ainsworth does have, is he can bring people that always like his pragmatic style, but tell you what, if it wins you games, they'll take it. Gillingham's record this season, not great. 14 wins, 16 draws, and 16 defeats. In the end, they finished with 58 points. Decent, but they would have felt better and would have thought better and wanted more. But so I got that one terribly, terribly wrong, and I have no deny of this. Now, this next team, a lot of people call them bottle jobs, and I will just say they bottled it. I actually put them down in 8th, so they've definitely outdone what I said. It was Walsall. They actually ended up finishing 4th. They were 16 points clear at one point of 4th place Port Vale at the time. I've got to say that has got to probably be the biggest collapse in EFL history, and I'll say that, especially if Walsall don't go up, it'll be the biggest collapse in Football League history. It's just one of them kind of like, how have you managed to do that? Obviously, they had Nathan Lowe early in the season up until January. I think it's bad recruitment and maybe a little bit of arrogance there. That they said they thought they had the league tied up. Maybe they did, but they obviously weren't ready for the loss of Nathan Lowe, because ever since Lowe left to go back to Stoke, whatever the circumstances behind that was. They knew there was a possibility that he could get called back, so they obviously weren't ready with a plan B, because but to still blow a lead as big as they had it, that's got a sting for Walsall. Because to be that far in front and to end up in the playoffs. But if you look at it really, they've had 2 wins since January. One was on February the 22nd and one was on the last day. Their overall record this season is won 21, drew 14, lost 11. But they drew so many games and they got what they deserved, really. At the end, they would have been relegated in the second half of the season had it's just no one was being consistent in the way of that, which is what I think kept them up there so much. It wasn't what Walsall were doing, it's what other teams weren't doing. And in the end, yes, they got a win over Crewe, but ended with 77 points. But be honest, I think they got what they deserved. They weren't ready for Nathan Lowe to go back. They didn't know what to do, and they've kind of been static ever since, just hoping that draws were going to be enough to get them up. But you also have to look at the options that maybe was had. It was a bit, but Walsall still got chances in the playoffs. They finished 4th. You don't know what they're going to be able to do. I'll go through the playoffs before I finish. In 7th place, I did put Crewe. Crewe were the opposite. They had a fantastic start to the season. First 7 months of the season, they were absolutely fantastic. They were in the top 5. They were always, contending. And for some reason, in the last 2 months to 10 weeks of the season, they just collapsed. They absolutely collapsed. I think their last win was actually us. Was actually Grimsby was their last win, but they just collapsed, and it was, I suppose, sort of kind of like Walsall's collapse, but it like Walsall's, it was a true collapse. They just Lee Bell just could not get a tune out of them in the last 2-3 months of the season, and I said they finished 7th, and they're a club that could easily finish playoffs. They actually ended up finishing 13th, 62 points, 5 defeats in their last 6 games for Crewe. Astounding, the drop off. Crewe are a good club, but wow, what a blow for them to be so good in the first half and the second half just could not find anything. But they're going to want to come again. Whether Lee Bell stays in the job, we don't know. But that's a bit of a stunner the other way. Maybe not as big of a collapse as Walsall's, but still. If we go into the playoffs now, into the top 6, I should say, Bradford, I said, would finish 6th. I'm going to say yes. It was a wrong one, but it was wrong by 3 places. Bradford ended up getting automatic promotion on the last day, in the last second, really, with the win, even though Walsall won on the last day. It was never in Walsall's hands, and Bradford, they'd stuttered a little bit recently, only one win in the previous 5, but they ended up, getting that last minute win to get up on 78 points. Their overall record for the season was 22 wins, 12 draws and 12 defeats. 64 goals, and a lot of this was done without Andy Cook, but it shows what Richard Smallwood was one of the players of the season for them this season. Bobby Poynton, a local lad, was a big vocal point at Bradford this season, and it was big for Graham Alexander because he was getting a lot of criticism when he went to Bradford, and they weren't too sure. But he's obviously gotten into the fact where they finish in the top 3, and I'm so pleased for Bradford City supporters. I know everyone says, well, Bradford are a big club. They are a big club for our level. They're definitely not, fan base wise, they're not League 2 level. Absolutely not. And I'm personally very, very pleased for Bradford that they are going to be a League 1 club next season. Congratulations to Bradford City. I got it wrong, but only by 3. The 5th team, again, a team I have a personal association with, Notts County. I said would finish 5th. I wasn't too bad with this one. They finished 6th. Last year they were scoring loads and loads of goals. They scored nearly 90 goals last year. They cut that down by nearly 30. But they had some major sort of injuries. Obviously, Jody Jones had been out for quite a while for Notts. Notts' main issue, I felt, was their home form started to drop. Their home form really began to drop. They're one of the very few teams this season, and actually the only team in the top 10 to actually do the double over my side, so really, Notts were good. I mean, David McGoldrick is still a level above this, and if they get Jody Jones fit for their playoff campaign, you never know. I've got to be honest with you. There's going to be a bit of bias for me in the playoffs this year. Now my side aren't in it. I will be hoping for Notts County to go up because of my family link to Notts County. So I've just given my playoff prediction away, but you never know. But 5th, 6th, I'll take it. They finished 6th. That was 1 place off. But Notts obviously in the playoffs. Their record was 20 wins, 12 draws and 14 defeats. 68 goals scored, 49 conceded for Notts County. My top 4 was as follows. Port Vale win 4th. I put them in 4th. They actually finished 2nd. And all I can say is I like Darren Moore. And I said that from the very start. When they got Darren Moore, I thought, what a get. What a get for Port Vale that was. Because obviously he'd had success at Huddersfield. He'd, he had success at Sheffield Wednesday. A good manager at the lower levels, and I'm pleased for Port Vale, and I'm pleased for Darren Moore as well. Got relegated the season before, and have bounced straight back up. Deservedly so. Talage was obviously one of their absolute revelations. He joined them from Aldershot at the start of the season, and he was definitely one of the vocal points of Port Vale, and a very, very pleasing season for them. They had Jaden Stockley as well, who at this level is absolute dynamite, and they had a dip in the middle of the season, as every team does. But they're able to halt that slide. It was kind of like after we beat them 3-0 in December. They just came back and bounced back. Great. I mean, the record in the last 6 weren't great. Well, I say weren't great. They won 3, lost 2, and drew 1. The last 6, but it's when they were getting the points, and Port Vale done enough to finish in the automatics. I said 4th. They finished 2nd. It was 22 wins, 14 draws, 10 defeats, 65 goals scored, 46 conceded. They finished on 80 points. 80 points for Port Vale. 3rd, I said Chesterfield. And, I said Chesterfield because of Paul Cook, and I also, mentioned Paddy Madden, and that they got Will Grigg as well, which is a big thing. They didn't finish there; they actually finished 7th, but they finished in the top 7. So it's not a win for me, but I'm going to take it as a semi kind of win because in the end they have the chance of the playoffs. They're a good side. They're a good side. They had a great late charge towards the end of the season, winning on the last day, which stopped Salford and ourselves from getting the playoff spot. But at the end of the day, can't fault Paul Cook. He's a very, very good manager at the lower levels, and they'll be looking for playoff success. They might get it. Who knows? My second place team was Doncaster. And no, that had nothing to do with the Harry Clifton link. Donny, once they got Grant McCann came in the back end of the season before, and he sent them on an absolute flying run. And if he'd come in slightly earlier, they probably would have made promotion last season. They got the playoffs, but fell short in that last year. This year, they were just, they weren't overly consistent, but they were, if that makes sense. They knew when they knew when to get a result, and in the end, they won it clear. In the end, really, Sterry, great player for them. Obviously, Clifton did well when he was fit, and they had obviously Billy Sharp at the end, and it was like Billy Sharp. He may not have the legs or anything anymore, but he has the goal scorer now. So you can see that, and Doncaster ended with 84 points to their name. That's 24 wins, 12 draws, and 10 defeats. Well done to Doncaster. That's unfortunately a derby of ours gone, which is a little bit disappointing, really. But Grant McCann, he knows his way around League Two, doesn't he? And congratulations to Doncaster, to Port Vale, and Bradford City. My absolute total, one of my biggest flops outside Bromley was this one. I said MK Dons would win the league. Oh, how wrong I was! And again, it was another one of those. It was a mess at Milton Keynes, and seeing them finish as low as 19th, I'm laughing because I can't believe how far off I was of it. I was about as far off as Milton Keynes winning the league as I was Bromley getting relegated. That's why I'm laughing at myself. Nothing worked for Milton Keynes this time. Absolutely nothing. They did get in the horse scene during the season, but it was just it was a big season of disappointment for them. You know what I mean? It was, yeah. I couldn't have got it more wrong if I tried. But at the time, you just felt like that's what it was going to be. And at the end of the day, I am so wrong. So, 19th in the end. Sorry, they finished 19th in the end. Well done me. That is my reaction to my predictions for League Two this season. Like I said, I think I only got about I only got one right. I was close to a couple, but I only got one out of the 24. That just shows you though how difficult it is. What I'll quickly do just to end this video is tell you what the playoffs are going to be in League Two this season. The 4 teams battling out for that is Walsall, Wimbledon, Notts County and Chesterfield. So that means this coming weekend Walsall play Chesterfield, Notts County play Wimbledon. Who would I like to see up out of those 4? Wimbledon. In the aspect of if you're looking for travel next season, Wimbledon. Personally for me, I'd love to see Notts do it. Now the Grimsby aren't involved, but we'll see as the playoffs progress over the weekend and the next weekend. So that is my League Two table review of how well I did. Not well. How well did you guys do? And like I said, a big apology to Bromley. I think, manager of the year for me, I am going to say has to go to Andy Woodman. Because I think, to get Bromley up and then to get them to finish in the top half, bravo Andy, is all I can say. And, it's been an enjoyable season in League Two. I'm pleased where my team finished. Are you happy where your team finished? And obviously, commiserations to Carlisle and Morecambe dropping out into the National League. But I suppose one way you could say is that's the way the cookie does crumble. In the meantime, guys, I'll be back with more videos over the summer. Obviously, a lot more Grimsby content coming up once the retain and release list of ours, but also to all the League Two followers that follow me and things like that. Thank you for your support over the season. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff. Let me know what you think of your team's season. I'd love to know. In the meantime, guys, I will see you in the next one, and hopefully next season when I do this, hopefully I have a better one. But we shall see. I will see you guys very soon. Like, share, subscribe, comment, hit that bell button. That'll let you know when I upload some more content. Until then, I'll see you soon. Ta-da.